Hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining. We're going to hop into a match here. So, first and foremost, I'm going to check what my regional Pokemon are, see if there's anything of note, anything that grabs my attention. I didn't see anything, so I'm going to do just typical and select everything out of my shop and throw two guys in. While doing so, I realized that unfortunately during the loading screen, we did drop a player. So we only have 7 in the lobby, but it is what it is. Sometimes it'd be like that. It shouldn't affect the gameplay too much. I do know for a fact that this match does turn out to be pretty interesting. I am doing something a little different this time, I have to confess. I did record this match ahead of time, and I'm doing a voiceover afterwards. There was kind of 2 reasons behind this. The first reason, I was still adjusting microphone settings. I was a little unhappy with how at least my audio came out for the open house video. And I think there's still room to grow, but I don't really have an ear for noise for at least the sound settings for microphones, and I struggle with that. It wasn't a great experience. I probably spent way too much time on it. And the second reason why I'm doing this is to help me basically describe my mindset, my mentality as I go through these matches. I feel like going through this route, it gives me a better chance to quarterback and explain exactly what's going on throughout the match. But if you prefer the older style, the more kind of off the cuff as I play, please feel free to let me know in the comments. But I'm just trying this one out and see if this works out. So first and foremost here, I do find a Horsey, and my thought process going forward with this Horsey is I want to run Dragon 3. So I'm looking to get 2 more dragons pretty soon here for the team by the time we start to verse other players. I happen to have the 1 Mudkip to add a water to the team and push for level 4 to reach both Dragon 3 and Water 3, which is pretty significant. It helps me when we start to verse other players to start fishing Magikarp as soon as I can at the earliest time possible. You can only fish Magikarp against other players and not against the PvE rounds. So that's my plan moving forward. I still need 2 more dragons to hit, and I'll need to reach an extra level as well to be able to play all 4 units for that strategy. I did manage to get a Charmander right away, which is fantastic. Here at the carousel round, I at first would like to go for the Never Melt Ice, but I decided against it last second, going for the Charcoal instead. The reason why I wanted the Never Melt Ice was I could pair it with one of my Mystic Waters to create a green orb to give myself a potential Mega Rayquaza endgame. However, I decided against it just because the odds of drawing Rayquaza are pretty low for the legendary pick, and just go for an item that I feel a little more confident in. I do end up picking the Bagon to complete my Dragon synergy for Dragon 3, and then also with my Mudkip on the field, it gives me Water 3 since Horsey counts as 2, while all keeping my gold above 10, which is ideal at this point. I decided to combine some of my item components while choosing Horsey as my early game carry. These item components are the Punching Glove and Soul Dew, which both boost the ability of Horsey and help it scale and do damage throughout the match. So that was my preference, hoping that it just is enough for me by the time I get to the unique pick. So after our first PvP round, we do fish a Magikarp, which is a good start. We're hoping this continues as we go throughout our matches, which is definitely something we're going to want. It will take 8 Magikarps to evolve into a Gyarados, which is a priority for our team. Gyarados is a strong dragon unit we want to utilize in this match. If we happen to get one early enough, we could push for Water 6 and get a good rod to allow us to start fishing for Feebas. We can fish them at a 30% rate. It is harder to achieve, but something that we want to keep on our radar. If we happen to get 6 Feebas, we could evolve it into a Melodic, which is another strong Dragon Water unit. But for now, I combine the 2 item components to add the Horsey to give it a Mana Scarf and allow it to shoot off its ability at a higher frequency and allow it to keep doing damage. In this matchup, we just verse a wild team here with a random Lairon. Have a pretty easy victory here. If we take a look at the team damage, we can see that Horsey is definitely our primary carry. The rest of the team is just there for moral support, providing protection for it as it does its thing. I see an Eevee in the shop and decide to pick that up. It has high potential if I get a synergy stone, say a water stone for this team. And also it just keeps it out of the shop of other players. We didn't fish a Magikarp this time, but we did happen to fish a Mudkip. It does match one of our units that's already on the field and gets us closer to evolving the Mudkip. At this point, I decide to take inventory of the other players and see where their economies are, how well I'm doing, see what synergies they have, and just take a mental note of what they may be cooking up if I need to highlight that and plan for that for later in the match. In this matchup here, we do verse a early Grass Floral team. Grass Floral is a pretty strong synergy that can carry from early game all the way to late game. We seem to be doing pretty good here, and Horsey launches his attack but barely misses out on the KO, which is unfortunate for us. And to add insult to injury, our fish unit is also not a Magikarp and doesn't match anything on our board. So that's a whiff there, and we're just going to have to get used to that. That's not going to be the last one as we continue our quest for a Gyarados here. In this matchup, we verse a full water team, and it does not look that scary, but they do have the 1 unit advantage on us, and it does prove enough, and we will end up dropping this match as well. And yet another fish unit, and yet another missed Magikarp. So I decide, taking a look at the draft Pokemon, I want the Kabuto. It is my preference. It is a water type, and also it gives me another Mystic Water. I can replace the Mudkip. Kabuto is just a stronger unit at this point. I sell the Mudkip off, and also the Azurill, and pick up the Trapinch. Trapinch does have the potential to evolve into a dragon, so I just stash that on my board and just continue. Luckily, we verse a baby team here, which I will take the free win. Thank you very much for that. I decide to go take a look at their team and spy on what eggs they have achieved thus far, just to get an idea what team they might be running for the endgame. I evolve Charmander in the Charmeleon just for a slight power boost, and then I decide I'm going to sell off the Eevee. I feel that the odds of getting a Water Stone at this point are pretty low, and I just want to get my economy to 50 before I enter this fight with Gyarados. I did get a second Magikarp, which is great. Unfortunately, I'm behind the curve here. I've gotten 2 Magikarps out of 5 matches, which isn't ideal. It's not a great start. And then I just fiddle around with the positioning of my unit, hoping that Horsey doesn't happen to fall in a place where it can get sniped by Gyarados' ability before Horsey does enough damage. And luckily, it takes a good spot, not directly behind a unit in the line of sight of Gyarados, and able to sit there and deal enough damage to take Gyarados down. Our item from the fight is a fossil, so I did end up getting that Water Stone. That would have been great with Eevee. It is what it is. Probably wasn't going to use Eevee for that long anyways in the long run. I have an idea what I want to do with this Water Stone. Here at the unique pick, I grabbed 2 more evolutions here to boost my team. And luckily, a Dragon Portal is floating right in front of my face, and I will take that. Thank you very much. I have a couple dragons in mind that I would like to use for this team. My preference is getting the Dracovish. It allows me to utilize Fossil for the team, and there it is. That's an easy choice for me. The Lottie twins were also an option. They're good units, but in this case, I've noticed some Fossil units in the additional picks and feel a little safer going for Dracovish. I combine the 2 items to create a Water Stone and give that to the Dracovish. It increases the PP regeneration for it, since now it has water synergy and lets it fire off its ability quicker. I replace the Trapinch. It's not that important. It's not a dragon yet. And now, because of the Water Stone, I'm able to sub out the Kabuto and keep the water synergy for the team to keep fishing Magikarps. In our first matchup here, we do verse a Druddigon, a dragon team, but unlike us, they were not able to sub in a 5th dragon to get that Dragon 5 bonus to allow us to have an edge over them and basically control this match and come out with a clean victory. The Dragon Synergy receives a significant power boost at 5 and more specifically the 7 synergy level, where your units will scale based on the amount of stars associated with each unit. I take a moment to identify the additional picks people are making, and I see a fossil that just came in to pair nicely with that Tyrant that is a Dragon fossil and unlocks a potential Dragon 7 Fossil 6 endgame for me. Dragon has a lot of endgame potential with overlap with other synergies, most notably Water, Fossil, Monster, Psychic, and Sound. Pairing Dragon with one of these synergies helps unlock its potential. Dragon on its own is strong, but getting another synergy to scale with it elevates it to higher levels. In our next matchup, we face off against a wild normal team. The only unit of note is the Dredagon, which our units quickly close in on, and we dispatch it, cruising to an easy victory in this matchup. Here at the carousel round, I did level up to level 6 here, and one item of note I see in the carousel that I want is the heart scale. I like to pair it with black glasses for a fluffy tail, but that's likely not going to happen since I'm going later than most people. One thing to keep in mind is you're going to want to keep a bench spot open, since we are still fishing for Magikarps here, and you will not fish a unit until after the carousel round concludes, so it's just something to be mindful of when you hit these stages. We did fish a 4th Magikarp here, so we're on our way here, but we're going pretty slow. I'm a little bit behind where I like to be, but it is what it is. We just stay true to the path. I throw in the Kabuto just as another unit to fill in there, our 6th slot as we continue. In our next matchup, we do face off against a dark team that has a pretty small team and lacking in evolutions. The Sableye isn't even evolved yet either, so it's not a hard match for us. Our dragon team is cruising. We're having a good time at this point. We're hoping to carry this momentum. With the quick victory, I decided to check in on a team that I labeled as a potential problem, and there it is right there, the Dredagon, who is absolutely scaling against this grass team and taking kill after kill and getting gold after gold. I think that's 8 gold by the end of this one that thing earned, and that's a bit of a runaway freight train that I'm kind of worried that thing's going to run away with the game financially there, and that is also a dragon team that's going to compete with me. So now I just need the game plan and figure out what I'm going to do for that in the future. In our next matchup, we do face off against that same grass team that got run over by that Dredagon. Unfortunately, we don't have the same scaling power or just punching power in general, and we fail to put a significant dent into this grass team as it eventually just whittles us away and grinds us down. So it's an unfortunate loss, and we can see how much room we have to grow at this point if we want to compete in this match. Our next fish is a Mudkip. We missed out. I think that's 2 Mudkips in a row at this point, and we're behind schedule. The Magikarps are not flowing the way I want. I did throw on the Friggerbacks. It does give me the global ice bonus, which is nice, and I would like to at least fit in another dragon to hit Dragon 7. Dragon 7 is pretty significant, so I do see the Dratini, and I push for it, and I swap out that Kabuto for it. Then, just to make sure that I stay above 50 gold, I just sell off everything and keep the Dratini while keeping a bench spot clear. It's an annoying dance you have to make while going dragon. Dragons scale with evolutions, but clogging your bench with Magikarps is a bit of a hurdle, especially when you need to keep a bench spot permanently clear as you progress through the round. That's why it's better to get a Gyarados sooner than later. Not only does it help you on the field, but it helps you keep your bench from clogging up. I do regain a shot at an Evermelt Eyes for that potential Green Orb endgame if I do get a Rayquaza. Still a low chance of that happening, and it'll be what it'll be. I decided to keep the Gible over the Dinos just because I like Gible a little bit more. I find it a little more useful for my team. In our next matchup, we face off against that water team again, headed by a Pikamiku, which is not my favorite unit. It's not really the strongest in my opinion. I then check in on that Dredagon I flagged earlier, and there it is, still doing Dredagon things. I am worried at this point. I'm shaking in my boots. That team now has a 50 plus gold advantage over me, and I am being left in the dust. I can't panic. It is a marathon, not a race, and I just stay with my path and keep going with my plan, and hopefully I can meet them in the end game and find a way to outscale them. The next match, it's against a sound team with their ranged units right up against the front of the line. For whatever reason, I'm not sure what that strategy is, but I'm not going to think too hard about it. It just take the free win. Thank you for that. It unfortunately knocked that player out of the match. We are at another carousel here, and again, to be mindful, we just keep that spot open on our bench for a Magikarp that is hopefully incoming. We did get a Ditto in our shop, which is helpful as we haven't had the best of luck getting Magikarp. I do push that egg out of the way. Give me that mana item. It's mine. It's what I'm going to push forward with. Please and thank you. We face off against that Dredagon team with it packed in the corner there, so it can't be over-targeted, and eventually it just works its way down our flank, getting kill after kill and getting gold after gold for that team. Very unfortunate that we are its next victim at this point. We still need to figure out a way to stop that runaway train before it's too late. As you can see, we did not get a Magikarp at the start of that turn, and we miss on it again. We are not having the greatest luck at this point, having 5 Magikarp. We are not even going to get it by the legendary. I did miss out on that Ditto earlier. I forgot to lock it down, which I'm a little upset about. I find a Tyrant in the shop and immediately prioritize it, selling off everything in the shop to lock it down. I cross paths with that Dark team again, led by that Sableye. They seem to be employing the same strategy as us, as they also have a lack of evolutions going on, and they're playing for the end game rather than pedal to the metal. And lucky for us, we can capitalize and get an easy win out of it. We did land a 6th Magikarp, so we are tantalizingly close, especially with that Ditto. We are almost there. I did look back on it, and it does normally take about 14 to 15 PvP rounds to get Gyarados, or about the round for the legendary pick, just judging by the odds. I do roll down below 50 gold as I reach level 8 and push for an evolution for the Frigibax to open a spot on my bench for hopefully that last Magikarp. I really did not want to toss the Frigibax aside. I wanted to evolve it for the slight power boost. I am up against a legendary duo, so I could have waited since I can't get a Magikarp this round, but it is what it is. For a higher level game, who knows that 1 gold could have made the difference. In this case, we are still above 40, so I'll roll with it. For me, I'm pretty fine here. Unfortunately here, I do spot a potential issue at the portals. There is only 1 dragon portal, and it is far, and yep, it gets sniped. There's also a fossil portal, which is actually my preference since it will almost always be a dragon, but that also gets sniped. So at this point, I just sit and accept my fate and look at the Pokemon given to me. I have to activate my neurons here and figure out what I'm going to do. And I look at my items and I see Articuno is not terrible and I have items I can run on it. So I decided to go that route and use Articuno as a good support for my dragon team. It is a hit to me, but hopefully I can utilize it enough to boost me in this match. I then contemplate what I'm going to do with this Jangmo here. I want to free up the space for that Ditto. And I figured I need to spend and get Gyarados in there now to help boost my team since I whiffed on the legendary dragon. And at this point, my bench is now free to keep accumulating dragons and boost up these evolutions on these guys and scale my team. In our next match, we face off against that water team, now with Articuno in the back, who is freezing and burning and applying true damage to their entire team, helping give our team time to attack, and Gyarados is now going to go do its thing. Luckily, a nice strong 3-star unit to help boost this pretty weak team at this point. I do fish a Magikarp, which I no longer want to see anymore. It took me way too long to get a Gyarados. I'm not going to go for double Gyarados in this one, though that is something you can do. I do see that I roll a Horsey in the shop, and I realize it's going to be better to recycle those items off of the Seadra at this point and give them to my better units. Right now, the main focus is Articuno to have it spam its ability. That's what I'm looking for as it continuously freezes and burns the enemy team. It should be helpful in this grass game, though unfortunately during the transition of items, I did not slot in the Horsey to reinstate 7 Dragon, so I'm at a pretty big disadvantage in this one and fall short and pay for it. I immediately spot an old Amber, and you know exactly what I'm going for. My item of choice, thank you very much. I'm going to take this to my corner now. I'm going to use this to boost my team to 4 Fossil. In my opinion, Fossil 4 is when you get a significant power boost to the synergy and makes it worthwhile. I missed out on 6 Fossil just because I whiffed on the Fossil Legendary, but it is what it is. I decide to correct my mistake I made earlier and sub in the Horsey to reactivate Dragon 7. And I find Gyarados worthy of receiving the old Amber. It's pretty much my strongest unit at this point. I give Dracovish the punching gloves just to give it a slight bonus to its attack speed, just because its ability damage is doubled if its attack speed is faster than its opponent's. We end up facing off against that dragon team with Dredagon again. and we find ourselves lacking in power in comparison here. And I need to still figure out something at this point if we want to stay in this match and compete. But luckily, we still have a little bit of health to bleed as we transition into our endgame. Our next matchup is against that same dark team we haven't really had an issue with this entire match, and unfortunately for them, the clock strikes midnight and we end up booting them from the match. That's another team down. Again, my only real concern is that dragon team, as it has run away with this game economically. I haven't really spied on them too much lately. I know I just need to focus on my team at this point and keep growing it as well as I can in preparation to start facing them head on and turn the corner. So after defeating the birds and taking a look at what options I have to choose from, I decide I want to go with the aqua egg. It is just a better item currently in the game for me. I did not have any reason to use Fluffy Tail. I'm not really versing any status teams, and I decide at this point at level 9, the strategy that I want to go for moving forward is that I'm looking for a Ghastly, which I do end up finding to pair with the aqua egg as well as the wide lens to help it use its ability. Its ability is very good at shutting down other teams, and at this point I'm just going to full send it and see what I can come up with, hopefully evolving into a Haunter, which would be a big boost. We do start off facing against that grass floral team, and luckily it seems our team after that roll down has received enough of a push to become strong enough to overcome them. I was not really keeping track of how important that silence was from Ghastly, but its end goal is to shut down that Palkia on the number 1 team, basically beat Palkia to the chase, and along with Articuno's freeze, hoping delay long enough for the other units to deal enough damage and punch through. I end up finding the Altaria too and sub out the Horsey to give yet another power boost for the team. Besides evolving the Tyrantrum, this is about as much as I can do for the team, and now all I can do is see how it fares as it competes against that top team. The fight begins and it's pretty intense with no clear favorite. It's dragon on dragon. Their side has a lot more damage potential, but we have Fossil for sustain with better support, and after a pretty lengthy fight, it's still too close to tell until the very end, and we do clutch out a win. And we stay relevant in this one, and uh-oh, now there's blood in the water. I'm smelling vulnerability. At yet another carousel here, my preference is typically Aqua Egg. I'm not entirely sure why I decided to pass on it at the moment. I believe it may have been to give another item to Haunter to slightly increase its rate of its first cast and have a better chance to shut down that team faster. But in hindsight, it likely would have been more preferable to have the Aqua Egg for the Altaria. And at this point, I realized my mistake, and then I just give the Altaria the item anyways. After messing up that pick, I didn't really care anymore. Three teams remain, but the top team is still very, very healthy, so we still have our work cut out for us to climb all the way back. We face off against that grass floral team again and knock them out of the game for good, so that's good for us. We just have one team to fully focus on, which has been the team we have been gearing towards for quite some time. After defeating the legendary cats, yes, they're cats, not dogs, we get 3 items to choose from. I am not the biggest fan of Smokeball, and Wonderbox is a pretty good item to go with, so that's a clear choice for me. I end up grabbing it and slapping it onto the Gyarados. It's one of my stronger units, and giving it 2 random item components is never a bad thing in this match. At this point, we sit and wait and see if we can continue the matchup pretty squarely against this team. It does look like they did a little scouting and they repositioned their Palkia, so it's no longer directly in front of my stronger units. It almost worked, and unfortunately for them, we clutch it barely with guys with very minimal health. That was a very, very close match, and I'm happy to win that one and continue with my momentum. They do evolve their Goodra. Hopefully it doesn't make too much of an impact. They also have a fully evolved Hydreigon as well in the back, and they might not have gotten those if I had focused those lines. In yet another close showdown, Gudra is their last remaining unit, and this comes right down to the wire. Yep, we do clutch it with one unit left in the end. These have been very, very close matches. It has been very fortunate for us that they could not close the door on us and walk away with it. In doing a quick review over the economy of this game, they did have a whopping 140 gold advantage over us, which we somehow are overcoming. I don't know how they don't have more evolutions at this point. It could be since we were both running dragon teams, so getting the full evolutions has been more difficult for both sides, which in this case plays an advantage for us. After yet another head-to-head match, it looks like our advantage is growing, so our momentum is continuously building. I did do a little bit of repositioning before that match. Maybe that played a factor. It was pretty minimal though, so I didn't expect it to do much. But at this point, we basically are home free and we have the advantage now. So I'm just rolling collecting units now while I can. Hang on to the Swablu. We're about to face off against PvE, so there isn't really a benefit to rolling down. We did make it back to north of 50 gold accumulated for our team. So that's pretty good, and at this stage we were feeling pretty confident in this one. Out of our 3 items, it was a pretty obvious choice for me in this one. I prefer punching gloves over the other items. Maybe Reaper Cloth would have been good, but I just wanted more consistent damage, so I decided to go with that item. It's pretty safe, it's pretty straightforward. I can't really mess it up at this point, and I need to just focus on closing this one out. I don't need a miracle anymore. As we wind down into the final matches here, I do start rolling below 50. It's hard to roll completely from above 50 to finish up your team, so I start rolling now preemptively in case I lose this one. It does look like our team still has the advantage and are able to clear it out with even more units still standing at this time. In the end, we were able to outscale to clinch first place in this one, which is a great end result. We looked way behind, but we were able to continue staying true to our course and building momentum to eventually surpass the top team, even despite the gold disadvantage. We were also able to circumnavigate some complications as well. I wasn't able to field the full dragon team by missing the legendary, and I also missed out on Fossil 6, having to utilize a different unit to try and fit what we had going and provide some tech to support. And in the end, we were able to pull it off. So thank you all for your time in witnessing this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.